Hello and welcome to this episode of RPGGamer Top 5s, and this time we'd like to take a look at the top 5 Star Wars video games which came out in the 1990s. The 90s were an amazing time for Star Wars games, with many series of games being released, all under the LucasArts label rather than independent licensees like they did in the 80s, which seemed to keep the quality high. Because of the number of series of games, and our rule in these top 5s that we can't have more than one game in a series feature in the list, we're going to detail all of the games in each series which feature, and then let you know which one was our absolute favourite. So our top 5 is actually going to feature 14 different games as we prune them down to just the 5 best. Anyway, let's get on with the list. At number 5, Episode 1 Racer for the Nintendo 64 in 1999. Star Wars Episode 1 Racer is a racing game based on the pod racing sequence featured in Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace. The game features all of the racers and racecourses on Tatooine featured in The Phantom Menace. It also adds several new courses, some on Tatooine, others on various planets. Several single player modes, including a tournament mode, are available for play. It also features multiplayer, the form of which varies by platform. The player's pod racer is equipped with a boost function that the player can activate. While activated, the pod racer's temperature will rise, and if the player boosts for too long, the engines will explode, destroying the pod racer and costing the player several seconds as they respawn to continue racing. The pod racer will also be destroyed if one or both engines sustain severe damage from colliding with too many walls or obstacles, requiring the player to steer carefully to avoid falling behind. The player can also actively repair the pod racer while competing. However, doing so results in a slower overall speed until repairs are either complete or stopped. The late 90s style of speed blur really works for the game, and it still looks decent and plays well even today. However, a fan-made remake using the Unreal Engine 4 was made available in early 2019, which can be downloaded and looks absolutely stunning. At number 4, Shadows of the Empire for the Nintendo 64 in 1996. Shadows of the Empire was conceived as a multimedia event, making a missing movie between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. It was consist of everything around the movie except the movie itself. There would be a novelization, RPG sourcebooks, soundtrack CD, and a video game conversion. Shadows of the Empire plays primarily as a third-person shooter. Players control Dash Rendar, the game's protagonist. Rendar has use of a blaster pistol which recharges after each shot, but the player character can also pick up additional power-ups which provide other properties to the gun. In later levels of the game, Rendar also acquires a jetpack, which can be used to traverse larger gaps than just jumping. The game also features other non-shooter elements, such as in the game's opening level, the player controls Rendar as he pilots a snowspeeder in defense of the rebel base on Hoth. 360-degree space battles occur in which the player character controls the turret of the protagonist's ship, the Outrider, and in one sequence the player controls Dash during a high-speed chase sequence on swoop bikes. In this section, the player must control both the swoop and attack and eliminate an enemy gang before reaching the destination. This was the game I bought my N64 to play. I'd been a massive Ridge Racer fan in the arcades, so walked into a shop planning to buy a PlayStation and a copy of Ridge Racer, but wasn't hugely impressed by the conversion when I tested it. Looking to my side, I saw the section of Shadows of the Empire on a screen, with Boba Fett blasting around in his jetpack, and I had to have it. So walked out with a shiny new N64 and a copy of Shadows of the Empire, which I played to absolute death on all difficulties and unlocking all the secrets. At number 3, the Jedi Knight series for Windows. Dark Forces in 1995. Dark Forces is a first-person shooter game developed and published by LucasArts as part of the Star Wars Jedi Knight series. It was released in 1995 for MS-DOS and Macintosh, and in 1996 for the PlayStation. The storyline is set in the Star Wars universe and follows the player character Kyle Katarn, a mercenary working on behalf of the Rebel Alliance. He discovers the Empire's Dark Trooper project, which involves the development of a series of new battle droids and powered armor stormtroopers. This told the original story of the capture of the Death Star plans, now rendered obsolete by Star Wars Rogue One, and introduced the Dark Troopers, which are stormtrooper battle droids featured many times in the franchise since then. The player controls Kyle Katarn from a first-person perspective, with a focus on combat against various creatures and characters from the Star Wars universe, although the game also features environmental puzzles and hazards. Dark Forces follows a central storyline outlined in mission briefings and cutscenes. Each mission includes specific objectives which are related to the story. The missions take place in a variety of environments, including a Star Destroyer interior, Jabba the Hutt's space yacht, and the planet Coruscant, where the player must infiltrate a computer vault. Dark Forces gameplay expands on the FPS standards set by Doom in 1993, and features gameplay elements which are now common in the FPS genre. These include the ability to look up and down, duck and jump. A variety of power-ups are made available to the player, including health, shields, weapons and ammunition. The game also features several non-combat items to aid the player. The headlamp illuminates the area in front of them, but will reveal their location to enemies in dark rooms. Ice cleats provide traction in icy areas, and an air mask protects the player from areas with toxic atmosphere. In addition to combat, Dark Forces provides physical obstacles for the character, such as jumping from ledges or traversing across flowing rivers, and includes multi-step puzzles such as mazes controlled by switches. Jedi Knight, Dark Forces 2 in 1997. Jedi Knight is primarily a first-person shooter, although it does offer the choice of a third-person view. The game consists of 21 levels with objectives which the player must complete before being able to continue to the next level. There are weapons available in each level, and after level 3 the player has use of a lightsaber along with a force. In addition to being an effective weapon, the lightsaber is also a useful tool for the player, providing light in dark areas, deflecting incoming blaster fire, and cutting through some obstacles. There are 3 types of force powers: light, dark and neutral. Light force powers provide non-violent advantages such as being able to restore health or persuade enemies to ignore you. Dark force powers are violent and give the ability to throw objects or choke enemies. Neutral powers enhance athletic abilities such as being able to jump higher or run faster. There are 14 powers in total, 4 of each type, and a bonus power in each light and dark if the Jedi stays true to that path. The game is set 1 year after the events of Return of the Jedi. The player still controls Kyle Katarn, who discovers his father had found the mysterious Valley of the Jedi, and that Katarn himself is a Jedi. You must locate the valley to save it from 7 Dark Jedi led by Jarek, or in the Dark Side ending, seize the role of the Galactic Emperor for yourself. So which was better, Dark Forces or Jedi Knight? Well, technically Jedi Knight blows Dark Forces away, but for our money, Dark Forces had the better plot, and the large modding community for it made us play it far longer than Jedi Knight. So Dark Forces wins. At number 2, the Super Star Wars series for the Super Nintendo. Super Star Wars in 1992. Super Star Wars features mostly run and gun gameplay, although it has stages which feature other challenges, such as driving a land speeder or piloting an X-Wing. It also features multiple playable characters with different abilities. Super Star Wars generally follows the plot of Star Wars, although some allowances were made to adapt the story to suit an action game. For example, instead of simply buying C-3PO and R2-D2 from the Jawas, Luke Skywalker must fight his way to the top of a Jawa sandcrawler while leaping from a series of moving conveyor belts. Brief cutscenes between the levels tell an abbreviated version of the film's story through written text. Later stages allow the player to control smuggler and pilot Han Solo or Chewbacca the Wookiee. The game also features several vehicle-based levels in which the player takes control of an X-Wing or a land speeder. Most of the stages consist of run and gun and platforming gameplay, with several different upgrades available to the standard blaster weapon. Luke can also wield a lightsaber after acquiring it from Obi-Wan Kenobi. The end of the game has players reenacting Luke's Death Star trench run to destroy the Death Star, with Darth Vader confronting the player in his TIE Fighter. Super The Empire Strikes Back in 1993. The Empire Strikes Back follows closely the standard set by its predecessor, with multiple player characters and Mode 7 quasi-3D vehicle sequences. The controls are very similar to the first game, but feature a double jump. Luke Skywalker, Han Solo and Chewbacca return as playable characters, although the character select option was removed. Unlike the original game, this installment allows each character the use of a primary and secondary weapon. Following one of the Dagobah missions, Luke Skywalker can also collect force points for use in later levels. Luke can now block incoming attacks using his lightsaber, allowing him to deflect blaster fire. Han Solo can now throw grenades, and Chewbacca has a new power-up, a spinning attack. Darth Vader once again appears as a final boss in the game. Super Return of the Jedi in 1994. Return of the Jedi follows closely the standard set by the previous 2 Super Star Wars games, with the return of selectable characters on specific levels, multiple playable characters, and Mode 7 quasi-3D vehicle sequences. The controls are identical to the second game, and this installment also includes its predecessor's password save option. It loosely follows the plot of Return of the Jedi, with some added scenes, such as Luke Skywalker having to fight through the Death Star to get to Emperor Palpatine. In addition to the standard Luke Skywalker, Han Solo and Chewbacca, Princess Leia and Wicket appear as playable characters. Bosses include Jabba the Hutt, the Rancor Beast, Darth Vader, and Emperor Palpatine himself. Vehicle sequences include the Endor speeder bike chase and a cruise in the Millennium Falcon. Skywalker no longer has 9 force powers to work with, but 5, and it's easier for him to recharge his abilities. He also cannot use any variation of the blaster in this game. Princess Leia is unique in that her appearance and playstyle changes in accordance with the plot. She uses a staff as the bounty hunter Boushh when approaching Jabba's palace, flights with a broken chain as Jabba's escaped slave on his sail barge, and wields a blaster when fighting on Endor as a rebel leader. But which was better, since they're all amazing games? And while the play was refined through the series, making Return of the Jedi play far better than the others, for us, The Empire Strikes Back is the most memorable, with the fight against Vader in Cloud City being the moment we remember the entire series for. Notable mentions: the Rebel Assault series for MS-DOS. Rebel Assault in 1993. Rebel Assault is a rail shooter game, featuring digitised footage and music from the original movies, although most of the original footage is replaced by CGI rendered sequences. Rebel Assault is one of the oldest titles to make use of extensive full-motion video on the PC. The video was used to display pre-rendered 3D graphics that were far ahead of what contemporary PCs could render in real time. Developers pre-rendered various environments and battles, and the players flew through these environments. The game follows the adventures of a young pilot known as Rookie One, a farmer from Tatooine in the style of Luke Skywalker. The game largely takes place during the events of Episode 4 A New Hope. However, the sequences on Hoth from The Empire Strikes Back are included. The game begins with Rookie One's training, followed by an attack on the Star Destroyer Devastator, after its capture of the Tantive 4 in the events of the film. The Rebel squad then defends the Rebel base on Hoth from the attack shown in The Empire Strikes Back, and finally launches an assault on the Death Star, with the player taking the place of Luke Skywalker and destroying the battle station. Each of the 15 chapters feature its own brief alternative ending clip, which plays if the player runs out of lives. All of the original characters are replaced by new characters and voices, and in some cases, new situations. For example, Han Solo and the Millennium Falcon are replaced by Commander Jake Farrell in an A-Wing, who saves Rookie One just before he has to take the final shot on the Death Star. Rebel Assault 2: The Hidden Empire in 1995. The sequel to Star Wars Rebel Assault, the player character Rookie One commands ships like the YT-1300, a B-Wing and a Y-Wing, and encounters new opponents like TIE Interceptors. The fly videos seem to move and rotate according to controller inputs, creating the illusion of steering the ship, which in reality is following a rail in a pre-rendered course. It contains mostly original filming with actors and stunts, while the scenery and the space scenes were 3D rendered. After the destruction of the first Death Star, Darth Vader has begun a new project for the Galactic Empire. Meanwhile, in the Rebel Alliance, rumours have grown concerning ghost ships attacking Rebel patrols, which turn out to be TIE Phantoms being launched from a cloaked base and cloaked Super Star Destroyer, which you must take out to end the threat. So which was better, 1 or 2? This one's not much of a challenge to decide. Rebel Assault 2: The Hidden Empire is superior in every way, with a better plot, better quality gameplay, and even better acting. Rogue Squadron for the Nintendo 64 in 1998. Rogue Squadron, also known as Rogue Squadron 3D on the PC, is an arcade-style action game. Each of the game's 16 levels introduces mission objectives that must be completed to progress to the next level. These objectives are divided into 4 categories: Search and Destroy, Reconnaissance, Rescue, and Protect. Enemy aircraft are primarily composed of TIE fighters. Ground defences are more varied, and include 3 different types of walkers, laser and missile turrets, tanks, probe droids, shuttles, stormtroopers, and speeder bikes. The heads-up display features a health meter, a radar, and an ammunition count for secondary weapons. The player can control 5 craft: an X-Wing, an A-Wing, a Y-Wing, a Snowspeeder, and a V-Wing. Each vehicle offers a unique armament arrangement, as well as varying degrees of speed and manoeuvrability. The game initially restricts the player to a particular craft for each level. However, after a level is completed, it can be replayed with any available craft. Levels set on non-atmospheric moons expose the player's crafts to space, thus disallowing the speeder and V-wing, which are repulsor craft, from being used. But on other levels, the craft is vertically confined, so you can use any vehicle. 9 bonus power-ups are hidden in different levels throughout the game. These bonuses improve a craft's weapons or durability, and are applied to each eligible craft for the remainder of the game. The game features a lot of unlockable content, including a TIE Interceptor and the Millennium Falcon, as well as a Buick Electra 225, based on a car owned by the game's sound designer, and the Naboo Starfighter, which, although embedded in the game before it was shown in Star Wars Episode 1, remained hidden until LucasArts revealed the code once the movie had been released. And at number 1, the X-Wing series, for Windows. X-Wing in 1993. X-Wing is a space simulation game. The player flies starfighters, including the eponymous X-Wing, for the Rebel Alliance as part of a narrative that precedes and parallels the events of Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope. Players assume the role of a rebel pilot fighting the Galactic Empire before and during the climactic battle of the first Star Wars film. The story consists of 3 tours of duty of 12 to 14 operations each. Although the tours can be played out of order, operations within each tour are played in sequence. Briefings, cutscenes, and in-flight messages advance the plot. Progress through the game depends on fulfilling each operation's primary objectives. If the player fails an operation, he or she can attempt it again. The initial game storyline concludes with the player flying as Luke Skywalker in his attack against the Death Star. 2 expansion packs extend the story beyond the events of A New Hope, up to the establishment of the Rebel base depicted at the beginning of The Empire Strikes Back. After choosing a pilot file to play with, the player is presented with a concourse aboard the Mon Calamari starcruiser Independence, acting as a main menu, allowing you to select between training missions, reviewing mission data, saving and loading games. As a spaceflight simulator game, X-Wing puts the player at the controls of various starfighters in space combat against enemy spacecraft. The game is played in a first person from inside the cockpit. The initial game offered pilotable A-Wing, X-Wing and Y-Wing craft, and the B-Wing expansion adds the B-Wing as a playable vehicle. All flight takes place in space. The player does not encounter gravity or atmospheric effects. The starfighters are equipped with recharging laser weapons and limited warheads. The player controls power allocation between lasers, deflector shields and engines. Charging the lasers and shields slows the player's craft, giving them effective power management and an important role in gameplay. The player can toggle the firing mode, separate or linked, of each weapon type, and balance the shields forward, aft or evenly. Mission types include dogfights, escorting or disabling other vessels, convoy attacks, and strikes on capital ships. During missions, the player can send orders to friendly craft. TIE Fighter in 1994. The game's plot begins soon after the Empire's victory on Hoth in The Empire Strikes Back. In addition to fighting Rebel Alliance forces, the player flies against pirates, combatants in a civil war, and traitorous Imperial forces. The original game ends with the player preventing a coup against Emperor Palpatine and being personally rewarded during a large ceremony. Subsequent expansions focus on Admiral Thrawn's efforts to stop an Imperial traitor. The final mission of the second expansion concludes just before the climactic battle at the end of Return of the Jedi. Playing on the side of the Star Wars saga's villain, the game presents Imperial forces and maintainers of peace and order in a tumultuous galaxy, which was reinforced as the player character mostly serves under the tactical genius Thrawn rather than the terrifying Darth Vader. The storyline is divided across 13 tours of duty, 7 in the original and 3 in each of the expansion packs, each of which has 4 to 8 missions. Though some of the tours can be played out of order, individual missions with each battle are played linearly. Mission briefings and debriefings, cutscenes, and in-flight communications advance the story. While based upon X-Wing, TIE Fighter does introduce several gameplay additions that make it less difficult than its predecessor. The targeting system allows players to target capital systems and space stations' components, such as shield generators and weapons. Additionally, the targeting display shows a 3D model and relative orientation of the player's target. Mission objective status is accessible in-game, as is a log of in-flight messages. Also, in addition to the standard mission briefing covering primary objectives, there is often another briefing given by a mysterious figure who belongs to the Emperor's inner circle. This person informs the pilot of optional secondary objectives and provides additional plot information. Completing the primary objectives allows the player to progress to the next mission and earn Imperial military promotion. completing secondary and secret objectives garners additional medals and promotions within the inner circle. For many, this was the high point of the X-Wing series of games, with a detailed plot, large variety of playable ships, many of which were being seen for the first time, such as the TIE Defender. But personally, I found its difficulty to be too unforgiving. X-Wing vs TIE Fighter in 1997. Including several technical advancements over the original release of its predecessors, X-Wing vs TIE Fighter runs on Windows, requires a joystick, and features a CD audio soundtrack. It supports high-resolution graphics and brings texture mapping to the ship models of the in-flight game engine. It includes robust multiplayer options for up to 8 players in a free-for-all, team-based, and cooperative play modes, and a sophisticated pilot and mission selection system that tracks the player's points and awards. In addition to selecting what craft he or she will fly, the player can choose their squadron and thus roll in combat for each mission. It's the only part of the series designed for multiplayer or personal practice only, lacking a storyline. Totally Games later released an expansion called Balance of Power, which added a storyline, but this lack of a campaign led to much dislike of the game, which, technically far superior to its predecessors, required friends to enjoy to the fullest. X-Wing Alliance in 1999. X-Wing Alliance presents the story of the Azamine family, a family of space traders. The player assumes the role of Ace Azamine, the youngest of the Azamine children, juggling military duty as a fighter pilot for the Rebel Alliance and allegiance to his family, flying larger, heavily armed freighters for the family business, amid a bloody family feud and in the larger context of the Galactic Civil War. Apart from the usual badges and medals for winning missions, as in previous games, progress is also indicated by a number of souvenirs collected in Ace's room. There is also a mail delivery between missions that helps to evolve Ace's background story, while also providing a deeper look into his personal relationships and his family's whereabouts. X-Wing Alliance is the first game of the series to offer a full voiceover soundtrack and full in-flight dialogue. Flight control is also marginally updated from the previous games of the series, allowing the player to link his or her different energy weapons to fire together, as well as the addition of rudder support. Graphics are also overhauled in the game, with high-resolution textures, more complex models, and full 3-dimensional cockpits being added. However, the cockpits are not faithful to the other games, since indicators and screens are separated from the cockpit, depicted as floating windows as part of the in-flight heads-up display. The player also has 3 mission skips, which allow them to proceed through the linear storyline without having to complete a particular mission. Family missions, however, cannot be skipped. The physics of starflight were also made more realistic for this game. Turning at speed was slow, whereas in the previous games inertia was not present. The ability to fly larger multi-crew craft like the Millennium Falcon was a major new feature because the player could freely choose to be the pilot or operate one of the turrets. The AI would then take over any position not controlled by the player, but could be given orders by the player. X-Wing Alliance also introduced multi-part missions that involved making hyperjumps from one region to the next. In previous games, any hyperjumps the player experienced were either to start or end the mission. Additionally, players can now enter a starship's hangar bay to rearm and or receive repairs before rejoining the fight. They could even witness the battle continuing to unfold outside the hangar. Finally, X-Wing Alliance added a much desired custom mission builder feature. This allowed players to quickly set up a variety of different battle scenarios involving almost every vessel in the game, including dozens of fighters and combat transports that had been fought against in the single-player game, and were now flyable in this mode. So out of these 4 games, which was the best? Well, X-Wing has an amazing plot, putting you in a vital role supporting the original movies at times. For example, you escort Leia's Corellian Corvette as she receives the transmission containing the Death Star plans, now obviously out of date due to the release of Star Wars Rogue One. TIE Fighter, however, introduces dozens of new ships and expands the universe in so many ways. But for our money, X-Wing Alliance rules over the two, by simply being a more playable game. And that's it for our top 5 1990s Star Wars games. So what did you think? Was TIE Fighter better than Alliance? Were the Jedi Knight games better than the X-Wing ones? Let us know in the comments below, or by getting in touch through email or the website. Anyway, as always, many thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you like what we're doing. But most of all, you look after yourselves, and we'll catch you later. Bye.